Hey guys, this is Elizabeth from the Missionaries of God's Love in Tustin, California, and today we're going to talk about I do not feel God's presence. This video was inspired by the book Purpose-Driven Life, written by Rick Warren. Have you ever found yourself in prayer but not feeling anything? Like before you felt God's presence and a joy while praying and speaking with God, but now you don't? Or one day you went to Mass and you felt nothing? Is something wrong with me? What's going on? Why do I no longer enjoy the things of God I used to enjoy? To start with, no, nothing's wrong with you. And second, you are experiencing what can be known as spiritual dryness, or the dark night of the soul, a term that St. John of the Cross created. This means that you're not alone in experiencing periods of spiritual dryness or darkness. The reality is that saints and many normal people go through this. People like you and me. Phases that can last for months or years, where people do not feel God's presence. But does this mean that God is not present? No, God is omnipresent, meaning He is always present with us. Feeling His presence is a whole different issue. Regardless of how we feel, God is always present with us. Okay, if God is always present with us, why do I not feel Him? Why does God allow this to happen? To start with, let me tell you that God does not permit the spiritual dryness because people have been sinful. It is not a punishment. Instead, it is more like a test of faith, where we face the question and challenge. Will you continue to love, trust, obey, and worship God even when you have no sense of His presence or visible evidence of His work in your life? God permits this spiritual dryness or spiritual desert to mature our relationship with God and to make it stronger. In the beginning, we tend to experience God's presence, and we have this beautiful, pleasant, and positive feelings or experiences when we pray, go to church, or read the Bible or a spiritual book. The moment we stop experiencing that, God allows that to happen because He does not want us to grow dependent on those pretty nice feelings or experiences. And don't get me wrong, God does want us to experience His presence, but He much prefers that we learn to trust Him instead of just feeling Him and depending on the feelings. The most common mistake Christians make in worship today is seeking an experience rather than seeking God. And this is so true today. I find that there's a lot of people who go to church and they think to themselves, I didn't feel anything. I didn't get anything out of this. But when people are looking for a feeling, they're looking for themselves. They're not looking for God. Because when we're at church, God is always present. And if we truly become conscious of what we're doing when we're at church, which we go to church not to only receive, but more like to give. We go to church to love God and to adore Him. We go to church to help one another and serve each other at church. When we only seek for God for the pretty feelings, we're being pretty egotistic. We're only seeking for things that we want. We're only seeking, again, for ourselves. Something to gratify us. This is completely different compared to a Christian or a Catholic who goes to church to seek for God regardless of whether they feel something or not. They seek to please Him and to love Him. Another example that I can give you guys to better understand this is having a relationship with God and feeling His presence is just like a friendship. If we just met a person at the street, we're not going to immediately feel a closeness or warm feelings or acceptance. We're just getting to know the person. But over time, and after spending time with them and conversing with them and seeking for them, right? Because a lot of the times we're busy and it can be hard to match our schedule with other people. But when we open our schedule to meet with them or hang out with them, we're making time for them and to get to know them. And the more time we spend with them, the more time we converse with them, the closer we become and the more beautiful the friendship becomes, or the relationship. The same thing is with God. We can't play with Him. We can't just tell Him, "Oh God, I'm just here because I want to feel the pretty feelings." Like if you told someone that you just were seeking for them out of your own gratification only to have pretty feelings, that person might be like, bye? You're only seeking for yourself. You don't care about me, really. This is why it is important to spend time with God and to speak with Him and to just truly seek for Him, even if we feel Him or not. And if we persist and persevere, I guarantee you that you will feel God's presence, because it will be a gift that God gives you. This tip goes for especially people who are just beginning to walk with God, or even people who haven't started walking with God. And by walking, I mean starting to have a serious relationship with God, spending time with Him. Now, the best example we can see of this spiritual dryness is with Job. In Job chapter 23, verses 8 through 10, it reads, "But if I go to the east, He is not there. If I go to the west, I do not find Him. When He is at work in the north, I do not see Him. When He turns to the south, I catch no glimpse of Him. But He knows the way I take. When He has tested me, I will come forth as gold." Here we clearly see that Job could not feel God's presence or find God anywhere. And yet he continued to follow God and pray. He accepts the challenge and says in verse 10 that he will overcome it. He compares himself to gold, and for gold to become the beautiful piece of gold that we all know, part of the process it goes through is that it goes through fire, a painful experience. But the outcome is a pure and radiant piece of metal. When we go through a spiritual desert or dryness, God sanctifies us and makes our relationship stronger after we get through it. So remember, God is real no matter how I feel. again. God is real, no matter how I feel. So this wraps up today's teaching, but stay tuned for the next video, as I will share some tips on what we can do when we go through those spiritual deserts. Continue praying with God for another 20 minutes. Tell God, "Speak to me, O Lord, for your servant is listening."